All right. Well, I guess it's time for the birds of feather for Ceph and research in scientific computing. Um, I'm Kevin. We kind of just do this every other month, a group of us, and that's on the Ceph community calendar. If anybody ever wants to join in on that, or you can just contact me, and I'll add you to my email list as well. Otherwise, there's a pad in the chat if you want to add topics, anything. It's a birds of a feather, so I have no presentation. There's no set topics, just ideas. It's what we want to talk about with stuff in scientific computing. So if anybody's interested in sharing, if they have interesting use cases they're doing with Ceph or fun experiments they've done to push it to its limits or make it work for what they're doing, and we'd love to hear about it. I think Dan, it looks like, is typing a very long CephFS job.
I was typing something, yes. Well, I mean, normally we do a bit of a round table, don't we?
Yeah.
I could briefly say what's happening. I could briefly say what's happening at CERN at the moment. I mean,
Yes.
okay, well,
Sure, free.
RBD wise, I won't say because next week our new fellow Arthur that's on the line will give a presentation on some RBD mirroring. S3 wise, well, Enrico's on the line. I don't know if he wants to say something about S3. Maybe we already just covered that a bit. CephFS wise, we've been doing some tests. We're adding a new CephFS region, and we want to, until now, we've never had snapshots. We've never used snapshots at any scale. And we want to, for this next cluster, to enable snapshots from the beginning. So we've been kind of stress testing it to see what the limitations are. And we learned a couple of things that maybe people already know. Maybe this is obvious, but we didn't know. So I guess what we did is we just untarred Linux a bunch of times, hundreds and hundreds of times, and then we're taking snapshots and we're deleting things. And we realized that deleted files go into the stray directory, just like deleted hard links go into stray. So there's a limit in Nautilus and Octopus of something like 1 million 1 million files. And then after you delete after you've like taken snapshots of 1 million files and then deleted them from the head, you now can no longer remove files from the head anymore, which are in snapshots. So, but good news is that in Pacific, this is fixed because the stray directories can be fragmented. So I think we've come to the conclusion that for this big cluster, we're going to need to upgrade to Pacific in order to go production with that. And then the other thing that we realized is that so we started deleting all of these millions and millions of snapshots, or hundreds of snapshots, let's say, to then trim the snapshots. And we didn't see any progress for hours in the snap trim PGs. Cluster was stable, but there was no progress. So then we realized, we looked into how it's implemented, and in fact, you only delete like 15 files per second from each OSD with the default configuration. So this is actually really slow. So if we have a lot of churn, the PGs will be in snap trim like all the time, I guess. We were able to change the configuration and managed to trim I think we had something like 50 million files that needed to be trimmed, and we trimmed them within half a day. So I think with tuned configuration, it's fine, but the defaults are really, really slow. And I know this is related to the recent like Blue Store story with PG removal. So I don't know. I know in some tickets, like Igor had written that there were maybe an opportunity or plans to rewrite the snap trimming, but I think that's all still in theory. But otherwise, this whole thing was stable in 14T21. So does anyone else have huge experience with like huge amounts of snapshots?
I was going to ask just to make sure I understand. When you were talking about the really slow trimming, the snap trimming, that was also on Nautilus, right?
Sorry, this is on Octopus. Arthur, this is an Octopus cluster. Yeah, this is Octopus. I'm wrong. It was 15 to 13.
I'm wondering if that's something that's changed. I thought Josh were on earlier. Made it up. Okay. Yeah, I think that'd be a question for Josh and you, how to see whether that behavior has changed.
Because we found a ticket which said no progress in snapshot trimming, but this was another user that was trying to delete 100 million files, and I think it just takes days to trim 100 million files.
Yeah, I mean, I think in principle, what the new scheduler should do on the OSD is that it should, go at full speed, but at lower priority than client work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because okay, I'll write it here for the
I'm
notes.
I'm not sure if they looked at this specifically. So this would be probably a good like rados micro test benchmark, whatever. So like queue up a whole bunch of snap trim work, and then make sure it makes good progress with on an idle cluster and also in competition, I guess, with client workload. Right, 15 to 13. Okay. Good to hear that the Ceph issue is resolved in Pacific though. Have any of these production clusters been upgraded to Pacific yet? On your side?
No. We're just upgrading the first clusters to we're doing Octopus now. We're still on Nautilus for most things. There was that long thread about the Ceph ADM containers stuff. So we didn't chime into that because we don't have anything useful to comment there. So this week we started playing with Ceph ADM so that we can have more like tangible feedback. The problem that we have with Ceph ADM is that we have a mixed environment. So we have to our base machines need to be Puppet managed. So we have Puppet to bring in like time synchronization and the Yum repositories. So we need to have Ceph ADM not manage that stuff, which all seems possible with the options of Ceph ADM. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing is that most of our Ceph clusters don't have access to the internet. So we need to mirror all of the images, which is possible for the base container image, but we didn't find a way yet for the monitoring images. Those seem hard-coded in Ceph ADM, but we're just still in the middle of testing this.
Yeah, I think they're just config options on the Ceph Manager module. You can set all those container names.
Okay, yeah, it should be. Yeah, we found that for the image, but not for the monitoring ones. So yeah, we'll keep looking.
It's an option under its manager / Ceph ADM /
I see.
agent proxy container image or whatever. It's like a Ceph ADM.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's it's in a slightly different place than the Ceph option for the containers.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. On the time synchronization, my recollection is that all Ceph ADM does is make sure that either NTP or cronid system D unit is turned on, but it doesn't try to configure it for you. It just makes sure.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I noticed that in the log. It said there's a check in the host check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it should as long as your Puppet. Yeah, I don't think they should conflict. All your Puppet stuff should really just make sure that Docker or Podman is installed and that time synchronization is turned on and that LVM2 package is installed and that Python 3 is available. Like that's really basically it.
Yeah, the one other thing I just remembered was that everything we have to do everything with Stream 8 now. So we're using Stream 8, and there's a issue with Podman in Stream 8. So this
Okay.
you have to. It uses Podman 3.1, and there's some kind of bug. I don't remember some capsys or something. I forget. There's a BZ about a bugzilla about this. Anyway, there's a workaround. You have to roll back to Container Tools 3.0, and then everything works.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey Dan, if you ever remember what that issue is, could you post it in the notes? Because I was about to go to Stream 8 on some of my clusters and upgrade as well.
Yeah, I'll find it and I'll post it. It's just a quick search here.
Yeah,
Was that
thanks.
a bug that you hit with Ceph ADM, or was it just a core Podman issue?
Well, it's a bootstrapping. When you're just initially bootstrapping the cluster, the first mon doesn't start.
Right. So I believe that's fixed. It's certainly fixed in Pacific. I'm pretty sure we backported that fixed to Octopus too. But yeah, basically the privileged option.
I think it's something different. I think it's something different because I found that I upgraded to Pacific. Well, I took the script from 16.2.4, so I don't know if.
Oh yeah, that should have worked.
I'll find it and link it, and then we can.
Yeah, it depends on if when you use the Bootstrap script, it's like that's used for like starting up the initial stuff, but everything else is deployed by the manager, and it will redeploy things, and so it matters more what container image you use. So if you're installing Octopus, it might have still. Anyway, the bug that I'm thinking of was that if you specify privileged to Podman and also capsys, it gives you an error as they're redundant or mutually exclusive or whatever.
So maybe it is the same bug.
But it should be fixed now. And if you identify a version where it's not fixed, we just are missing a backport. But, yeah.
So on the upgrade question, we haven't gone anywhere near Pacific yet, but we did just recently upgrade our big production cluster from Luminous to Octopus. We stopped briefly in Mimic, but it was a sort of 1 day process. We started the day at Luminous and ended the day in Octopus, and got it's about a 20 petabyte raw capacity cluster, and we got all that upgraded without, I think, any disruption to service, which was quite nice. And we're now going to probably look at Pacific on our test cluster. We did encounter almost an outage. The CV fix about insecure global ID reuse. So on our test cluster, we got the warnings about, you've got clients using it and your mons allow it. And we upgraded all the packages and restarted all the Ceph daemons, and then the cluster said, you haven't got any clients using the old thing anymore. So we disabled it, and then our OpenStack started misbehaving. And the thing that isn't quite very obvious from the documentation is you have to restart all of your virtual machines, having done the upgrade before you can safely turn off the insecure global ID thing. And I think that there could have been a bigger, scarier flag in the documentation about that, because I thought, we wait till the cluster says you haven't got any clients using the old thing anymore, it's safe, and it turns out that's not quite the case.
You have to restart those virtual machines that are using the old librados part. And that's really important for OpenStack environments.
But we found it on the test cluster, so.
Okay. Yeah, I'm surprised the warning went away, even though you still had VMs that are using.
Yeah, it might just be because it was the test cluster. It might be that none of the machines were doing anything much at that point, because it's just a test cluster. So sometimes there's very little activity on the OpenStack clients there. So I don't know if it was that or something.
Oh yeah. It has to be like an active connection. So if the virtual machine is actually running, then the warning should have shown up. But if like vendor has a Ceph credential but isn't actually like issuing any commands or something like that, then it won't show up. But if you had a running VM, it should have appeared. something, I guess, something to watch out for.
Matthew, when you did your upgrade, you run like Debian or Ubuntu, right?
We're Ubuntu, yeah.
Okay.
8.4.
All right. I thought so, but if not, I was going to ask if you did like a CentOS 7 to 8 stream at the same time or not, but I thought you didn't have that Python problem like the rest of us.
Yeah, no, and the way Canonical produce packages, you can keep the Ceph upgrade and the underlying operating system upgrade distinct. So
Yeah.
we're going to upgrade to 2004 later, but probably later this year. That won't be me because I'm leading the Sanger, but that's another thing. But we can now upgrade from 1804 to 2004, and the Ceph version will stay the same. So that's quite handy.
Mm-hmm.
Did you change any kind of defaults? Because I bet that on that size of the cluster you have some specific parameters to tune up the cluster. So did you see anything when you were upgrading from older one to newer release? Or did you have to change any timeouts or things like that?
I don't think we had to make any specific tuning changes between Luminous and Octopus. So we used Ceph Ansible, and obviously our Ceph Ansible needed quite a bit of reworking, and so that the Ceph Ansible changes what the rados gateway daemons are called, which is a bit annoying. So that meant we had to be quite careful about starting and stopping and restarting the daemons with the new service names. But I don't think we found particular tunables that we needed to change so far from Luminous to Octopus. I mean, some of that will be Ceph Ansible sets and sensible defaults for you. Other than that, I think we kept the tunables we set previously and haven't really done much with them, at least so far. So from that point of view, it was a pretty painless upgrade, actually.
Did you turn on telemetry when you're done?
Well, not yet. Actually, it's on our test cluster. There's a bug in the version of Octopus we've got deployed on production that means turning on telemetry doesn't work. But it's because it's a slightly old version of Octopus, and Canonical have now rolled out a newer version of the Octopus packages that will fix that. So that's slated for next week's at-risk period. But it's on. Thereafter, we are planning on turning telemetry on.
Cool. Are you? You might have said this, and maybe I missed it. But are you planning a transition to FADM now that you are on Octopus?
I don't know yet. So we use Ansible for everything. And so using Ceph Ansible to manage Ceph makes quite a lot of sense because we have Ceph Ansible and then we've got some of our local roles and we do everything like that. So I don't know. I think not immediately.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, where we've got a lot of experience with Ceph Ansible now and we're quite comfortable with it.
Yeah. Okay.
So I guess I can add a couple of things. We had a curious issue recently where the log segments didn't get trimmed for a few days, and we ended up with tens of thousands of the log segments, and that was eventually fixed by restarting the MDSs. So that took me a little while to be brave enough to do that. And afterwards, it was fine, and they flushed immediately. So it was a bit strange. And I'm also not quite sure what we did other than so we've got a Cephfs. not particularly massive, but I was doing an async of 40 terabyte, so file space with millions of files. So maybe the MDS got too busy in some way, and we've got 2 active MDSs. So that was a bit strange. And the other bit that's a bit more exciting is we get to switch off our cluster on the weekend for some power upgrade. And so I figured that what we are going to do is we switch off all the clients first, disable CephFS, and then follow the instructions for switching off the cluster. Is there anything I should be aware of?
I don't think so. I'd just turn it off. Yeah.
I tend to set a bunch of flags, like the no whatever flags, to keep the maps from changing too much while things turn off and on. But other than that, just pull the plug nicely.
Yeah.
Magnus, which version you were running? Which Ceph version you were running?
Nautilus. So we are on nearly the most recent one. I think it's the one with the security fix. That's the one we are on at the moment. So I think that's 21, maybe.
Yeah, I mean the way that the MDS works with the log segment trimming, they're basically just like a reference count that has to go to 0 before it can drop the log segment from memory. And so there's probably just some really subtle reference counting issue where it's not letting go of that particular segment, and just restarting the MDS clears that out because it's sort of reading it fresh from the. But yeah, one of those like mostly harmless bugs that are like really hard to track down probably. But who knows? I wish Patrick was on because he would probably remember whether there was anything that's been fixed there recently or whether this is something that he's seen.
I guess a general update from me is we're considering switching from using our librados to CephFS, which will probably make a few people on this call happy. We've been doing some performance testing of, throwing our 3,000 or 4,000 cores at it and whatnot, and it's been looking pretty good to support processing just straight on the CephFS volumes without copying data to like the local processing nodes. And it seems like a file store, there's a bug report or whatever out there to deprecate it in a couple versions. Get off that. Like the right path is just go to CephFS and start converting some to BlueStore, and some of the nodes to BlueStore is just going to be a long process for the 11 petabyte cluster, but just needs to be done.
Yep. Yeah, the like percentage of file store OSDs is sort of steadily dropping, but there's still quite a lot of them. I think it's only if you look at the telemetry, it's only like 20 clusters I think total that have telemetry on that are still reporting file stores. So not too many.
Yeah, probably 2 or 3 of those are mine. So definitely not being used anymore. I need an exit plan to get on the BlueStore.
It used to be the plan that once we had sort of orchestrator support for the OSDs with Ceph ADM, then we could use that to automate the transition from file store to BlueStore. but we ended up not supporting file store at all in Ceph ADM just because it was too annoying, tedious, and obnoxious. So
yeah,
blue store is a requirement before you can make that switch.
Yeah, that'd be nice. And it's just the way we do it since we use rados directly. We still have a whole bunch of extra steps to actually move the files to SFFS.
Is the plan to just create this SFS volume within the same cluster and just migrate the data that way or incrementally as new data comes in, or are you gonna set
up pretty much. I think what we'll end up doing is I'm going to get we're still on Nautilus. I'd like to at least get up to Octopus, and then take 10 OSDs on 10 nodes each or something, pull them out, rebuild them as Blue Store, and build a new CephFS on that with erasure coding. And then just start the slow transition process, moving from out of rados on the CephFS, and at the same time just start shrinking the file store OSDs into Blue Store ones and coordinate it that way, I guess.
By the way, I was looking this Etherpad and thinking about the done approach for this snapshotting CentOS stream. So how about the Ceph packages? Because on a CentOS stream, you can get also Ceph packages that are packeted somehow different way than normals.
I'm not sure what CentOS stream repos what version they're packing for. Let's just use the primary repo.
Well, at least the signature is different. I didn't check through if they are different or not, but. Just curious if Dan and the guys are using packages from Stream or somewhere else.
Sorry, packages for what? What do you mean?
For Ceph.
Well, we don't use
Ceph RPMs.
No, we don't take Ceph RPMs from the distro at all. We take them from either a mirror of download.ceph.com, or we have some local rebuilds we have a local Koji instance where we build stuff. I didn't get where else would you get them from? Like within Stream?
There is a stream that you can get Ceph packages. I just noticed.
Oh, is this like the SIG, the storage SIG? Is that what you?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we haven't used the storage SIG.
Are they up to date? Those packages?
I think recently, last I checked, they were. Okay. Well, that was months ago now, but
quite sure
there was some new activity there, some new maintainer. Sage, I don't know if you saw, but I put a link to that Bugzilla. It's for the
yeah.
Cat perf one.
The one we hit was CapSys. I can't remember if it was that one or not, but I believe it sounds like the same issue.
I mean, checking the mailing list, I didn't see cat perfmon mentioned anywhere.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's the same core bug though.
Okay.
Well, let me double check. Good.
Yeah, there is a tracker about this even. Yeah.
I have a question. Maybe someone here can enlighten me. There is some bugs or missing functionalities in Nautilus and in Pacific current backports, and there is on the both things that I'm waiting or I would like to get on production. There is a code for it in the master, but bringing that on a test environment, for example, so backporting yourself, it's getting really complicated because the code base in Rados gateway, for example, is getting at least for me, I see that it's difficult to backport, or you just would like to. Well, I need to ask someone to kindly backport those bug fixes from the master because I don't have the skill to add all the changes and what are the newest Quincy style changes on the Rados gateway and what are the ones that I really need for backporting those fixes from the master to Nautilus or to Pacific. So how to do it? Can someone help me? I have 2 bugs and there's a kind of fixes already for those, but I fear that I cannot get them to Nautilus or Octopus or Pacific unless I know how to do them, because they are OpenStack Keystone related bugs with Swift. We discussed that earlier, and I think that Walowski did some patches on a master, but they are in a limbo currently. I cannot test them because I don't know how many different parts I have to backport in order to get them on my test environment, or how to compile them properly without pulling them from the full Ceph development code stream.
Basically, the question is that is there an easy way to backport something that exists in the master repo right now?
Yeah, it looks like Casey's a non. I mean, I think that the larger context here is just that there's a lot of refactoring going into Rados Gateway recently, and so every release, a lot of churn there, and so just backporting in general is hard.
Yeah, it's really hard to backport things, and I personally would like to have a somehow if there is a refactoring on Rados Gateway, is there any possibility to bring those Rados Gateway functionalities on all kind of stable releases with the same time. So I know the Nautilus is going away, but still on Octopus and Pacific, I would like to see the same code base that we are running in a master, because
I will refresh this pull request. Maybe it will be merged into master. I think it's still usable. Or if it requires some changes, I will make it. I posted the link on the chat for that.
That just need to get rebased.
yes, but if you start yourself trying to rebase that from the master, it will get really complicated while you're administrating the clusters. I'm not the developer. I'm administrator. So it takes time to figure out that what are the cherry-picked parts that I have to put on a system in order to maintain Rados gateway on a Nautilus, for example.
Yeah, well, I think the first step in any case is to get that merged into master, and then that change looks particularly straightforward, so I don't think it should be backportable. How many people are using the Swift interface for RGW? I haven't heard much about it for a long time.
We use it only. We don't use it for. So we have everything integrated with OpenStack via Magic, which I don't understand. We use the Swift interface only because the users can query their bytes used and quota through the Swift API, but they can't get that through the S3 API. So we enable this for people that want to monitor their own usage.
Interesting. Okay.
I happen to know that Wikimedia use the Swift interface to the Rados gateway for their media internally, even though they don't run OpenStack. I don't know why they use it rather than S3, but that's primarily what they're using Ceph for.
I can enlighten at least at CSE side, we are using Swift because there is expiring tickets. So the authentication is expiring within 8 hours, for example. With the S3, you would need some STS credentials in order to make same kind of functionality. So you wouldn't give your credentials on an HPC environment like fully open. Like with the S3, you have now to give your passphrase somewhere, but with a Swift you authenticate yourself and then it's active for a while and then it's gone. And that's my second challenge. I would like to get that STS part on the Ceph Rados gateway working better. There is now some progress already for that. But that for example would give possibility to get away with a Swift, because I think that's not maintained quite intensively nowadays comparing to S3 APIs.
Yeah, that makes sense.
PCC, this is a computing center in Poland. We are keeping Swift interface because some users, actually internal users, especially the digital repository people, started to use Swift like 5 years ago, and then they don't want to stop. We are killing the original Swift instance and moving people to Ceph-based Swift, actually partially done. But still, it's hard to them to get rid of Swift because of some software dependencies. That's the reason why we have it. But it's not a big installation.
Is that because of like use of the Swift middleware stuff, or
because
on the client side?
I mean, they have actually implemented their own repository software using Swift interface, not S3, and it's like heritage we have.
Yeah.
Kind of. And they're not really willing or having funding for redesigning the software part.
In our side, there's more than 5 petabytes of Swift usage currently. So I think that I cannot just drop away the Swift functionality.
I didn't realize that Wikimedia had switched over to using Swift on Ceph. Last time I talked to them, it was probably like 8 years ago or something, but they're actually deploying Swift proper. But that was a long time ago.
There was a mail from one of the Wikimedia guys on the users ML today.
Yeah. Confess I don't read the Ceph users list. There's a lot of traffic there.
Well, I think we're about to run into the next one for the Go talk. So thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess regarding like our bi-monthly get-together, I'm kind of leaning towards skipping July since a lot of people are on vacation, including me probably, and maybe we just do August or September for the next time we chat. Send out my usual emails and let everybody know.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks. Cheers. See ya.